ChatGPT Codex is hands down the most powerful AI coding tool that you can use right now. But most people aren't using it to its full potential. So how do power users actually use Codex? The answer isn't running 20 terminals at the same time or following a 10-part prompting guide. There's actually 3 simple rules that help the top 1% of Codex users build better and get more done with the same Codex that we all have access to. And in this video, I'm going to share all 3 rules with you and walk you through how you can apply them in your work today. Starting with rule number 1, the verify rule. Don't just give Codex a task, give Codex a way to verify its own work. The verify rule works because models like GPT 5.6 Sol are designed to achieve goals and work on tasks with less and less instruction. So when you give Codex a way to verify, you're giving it judgment. It can check its own success instead of waiting on you to review every single thing. So as a builder, you need to define what success looks like and give Codex a way to prove that it achieved it. The easiest way to start applying the verify rule is to give Codex tools so that it can test its own work. First, if you're building a web app, ask Codex to use the in-app browser to test and review its work. This enables Codex not just to view the pages of the app, but to click through the flow and ensure it works as intended before it reports back. Second, if you're building a mobile or desktop app, use computer use to let Codex drive the simulator and verify the experience directly. Thirdly, ask Codex to write and run tests to verify its work before it finishes. This can be the test suite for your app, as well as tests for new features like integration tests or end-to-end tests. You can take this even further with test-driven development, or TDD. This means asking Codex to write the test first and then implementing the feature and fixing bugs until those tests pass. The tests then become protection against your app progressing and that feature breaking in the future. A pro tip for the verify rule is to require evidence. Don't just settle for Codex's word. Instead, ask for evidence like the actual test outputs, a screenshot, an exit code, or whatever proof fits your specific task. If you want a few phrases that you can copy directly into your prompts, here are some that I use all the time. For browser-based verification, you can say, verify your work using the in-app browser before you finish. And for requiring tests, you can say, write the tests first and ensure they pass before you finish. Now, the verify rule gets even more powerful when you start thinking in goals. Here's what I mean by that. When most people give Codex tasks, they tell Codex what they want it to do next. In contrast, a goal tells Codex what success looks like when the work is done. A goal specifies an outcome you want to achieve, boundaries within which Codex can use judgment, and what success looks like so that Codex knows when the task has been achieved, like test passing, a walkthrough confirming the intended behavior, or achieving some performance metric like loading speed. Here's an example of using the verify rule to frame your prompt as a goal. Rather than just saying, implement this feature spec doc, you can frame the prompt by saying, implement the feature described in the spec. Finish only after all acceptance criteria have been met, the test pass, and the UX has been tested in the in-app browser end-to-end. You might notice that an important part of the verify rule is giving clear success criteria so that Codex can more accurately verify things as you intend. This does require a little bit of extra thinking up front, but I think it's worth it because it can save you a ton of time and tokens down the line. Now, the verify rule works best if Codex has access to all the tools and services that we use to build and work with. Which brings us to rule number 2, the context rule. Connect Codex to the tools and systems that you use to build and work with every day. The context rule basically says to think about onboarding Codex like a new employee or teammate. When someone new joins your team, you probably ask things like, what systems do they need access to? What processes do they need to know? And what context do they need to do their job well? You should be asking the exact same questions about Codex. Doing this will put you closer to the top 1% of Codex users because the quality of Codex's work depends on the context it can access. The more relevant systems and processes that you connect it to, the more Codex can do for you, both inside the applications that you build and in your day-to-day work. So let me show you 4 practical ways to apply the context rule. The first is to use plugins to connect Codex to the tools and services in your workflows. Plugins are installable packages that help Codex do more. They help connect to external tools, take action inside them, and follow best practices for using them well. Under the hood, plugins often package things like MCPs, which help agents read and write to third-party tools, and skills, which give agents specialized context and knowledge that can be loaded on demand when needed. I use plugins every day in my own work. For building, I use plugins for tools like Cloudflare, Vercel, MongoDB, and Supabase. And for business work, I can't live without the Google Drive plugin, as well as tools like Slack and Canva. I recommend choosing plugins based on your project's tech stack and the tools that your team uses. For example, I use Google Drive, but if your company uses Microsoft Teams, there's a plugin for that too. And second, start by installing one plugin per job instead of installing 5 that all do the same thing. This makes it much more likely that Codex will choose the right tool consistently. The second way to apply the context rule is to use the in-app browser to log into your SaaS tools. Once you're logged in, Codex can interact with these tools through browser use. For example, I use browser use to pull reports from Google Analytics, check my email marketing performance, and research topics on X. This closes the gap for tools that don't yet have a plugin or MCP. The third way to apply the context rule is to create your own skills. This is how you encode the processes and workflows that are specific to your job or your business. If you're new to skills, skills are ways to teach agents specialized knowledge and processes. It can contain instructions and examples that teach Codex how to perform a specific workflow. By creating your own skills, you're giving Codex an understanding of your workflows and your business processes. That's context it can't get from a third-party plugin or from its own training data. This is where your unique way of working becomes accessible to Codex. You can use a built-in skill creator to easily create skills of your own. My rule of thumb is that if you ask Codex to do the same thing twice, consider turning it into a skill. Some skills that I've created for myself and my team include a create spec skill to create product and engineering specs in the format that we use, a weekly report skill that pulls key metrics and publishes them via email and Slack, and skills to help in the brainstorming and ideation process for new projects. Giving Codex connected context also means that you can get even more out of features like scheduled tasks. This is where everything starts to compound. A scheduled task can run one of your skills, use your plugins and browser logins to gather information, and then take action, either in Codex or in an external system. One example of this in my own work is a daily report that finds the latest AI news on X, pulls out the tweets that matter for me, and emails the report to me every evening. To build it, I first worked with Codex to get everything working manually. Then I asked Codex to wrap that workflow in a skill so that it could be invoked repeatedly. And then I created a scheduled task to run that skill every day at 6 p.m. Now, the context rule transforms Codex into a super capable employee. But the top Codex users don't stop there. Why settle for a great employee when Codex can be a great manager? Which brings us to rule number 3, the Orchestrator Rule. Let Codex prompt and manage itself. The Orchestrator Rule works because models like GPT 5.6 are getting better at inferring your intent. You tell Codex the outcome that you want, and Codex can turn that into detailed prompts, spin up one or more threads to do the work, and report back the results to you. And this changes your job as a builder. Instead of writing perfect prompts, you describe outcomes with success criteria and verification methods, and Codex writes the prompts and orchestrates the work for you. Here are 3 ways to start applying the Orchestrator Rule in your work today. The simplest one is to ask Codex to kick off a task in a new thread. You can give it a short description of the outcome that you want to achieve, and Codex will expand that into detailed instructions it needs to deliver. This takes advantage of the fact that Codex is better at prompting Codex than you or me. The second way to apply the Orchestrator Rule, and the one that I use most often, is to keep one parent thread for each project and let Codex spin up new child threads for individual tasks. You can give this a try by asking Codex to spin up new threads and work trees to fix all the open bugs in your project, or spin up a new thread to research a topic and report back. This pairs really well with voice mode in Codex. You can talk to your parent thread like a chief of staff. It can kick off the work using the child threads and report back when it needs your input or when the task is complete. The third way to apply the Orchestrator Rule is to ask Codex to use subagents for focused parts of a larger job like planning, implementation, testing, or review. If you haven't used subagents before, they're just separate agents that work on a specific piece of work in a fresh, isolated context window. Your main thread can create and delegate your work to subagents who then report back when the tasks are complete. Subagents are especially useful for read-heavy tasks like research, investigation, and review, but they're also useful for testing and building parts of a project in parallel. Now, the key point about subagents and the Orchestrator Rule is that you don't have to design the entire delegation plan yourself. You can simply ask Codex to use subagents as needed, and then Codex can decide where subagents would help with the task. The Orchestrator Rule is the final piece of the puzzle in what separates the top 1% of Codex users from the rest. By combining all three rules, you're able to tell Codex an outcome that you want and have Codex orchestrate the needed threads, pull internal and external context, and verify success. And if you want help applying these rules on your journey to becoming a top 1% Codex user, check out Become an AI Native Builder. It's a live program to help you master Codex and Claude Code, and it's helped founders and professionals from companies like Meta, Amazon, NVIDIA, and more level up how they build and work with AI. And you can get 20% off using the link in the video description. Comment with which rule you plan to apply first, or if you have any other helpful Codex tips you'd like to share, leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. And Thibaut, if you happen to be watching this, please reset rate limits so that folks can try these rules and all the exciting features. Let's hope that works. Anyway, happy building and see you in the next video.